Hi, this is a quick video to show you assembly of the QT-2host, or toast, as I like to say. We've got the new version of this has all the components soldered on the bottom side, and you're going to want to flip that over and have the numbers for each of the sides facing up, and then the cutie pies are going to go on top of that. You'll notice there are white markers on the PCB here, and that's where you need to solder. So you don't need to solder all the pins, and just the white marked ones, and maybe that corner that's not marked, but the white ones are the only ones that are actually connected between the boards. So you don't need to solder everything. You can if you want to for completeness, but if for some reason you decided to take this off, at some point you might want to desolder it, and it's much easier to do 5 of those versus all 10 or 12 or however many there are. So what I've also got here is with QT Py you'll usually get a set of pin headers like this, and you can cut that in half or down to where you've got a set that's the right size for each side of this. I don't actually use the pin headers to solder this together. I'm going to just use the castellated pads. These are these edge pads on the QT Py. You can kind of see the gold there. And it's a little quicker and a little easier than worrying about the pin headers and connecting them. But we want to use the pin headers for positioning. So what I like to do is take the long side, put it through the QT Py, drop the QT Py into place, and now it's sort of more or less in the right position. So now we're going to want to solder, tack down a side here. What's helpful is the board might be a little wobbly here because the jack's underneath. You could use the other QT Py for this first side as a little support there in the corner, and that will help to hold it in place. So let's get some solder going and show you a couple of tricks here for the castellated pads. So you want to kind of get it lined up, but maybe not perfect, and then get a blob of solder on one of these pins, like the RX pin here, or maybe 5 volt, and just get a little blob of solder going and kind of leave it alone for a second. Then what I like to do is maybe get it this way and make sure the QT Py is kind of in a good place. And what I'm going to do is take the soldering iron from the side to get sort of maximum connection of the iron and the pad right there, the castellated pad, and sort of drag it in through the solder there, and then you'll see the solder kind of melt a little bit into place. Position looks pretty good. You want to make sure these castellated pads line up with the outside pads like they are right now, and I think that feels pretty good. They can be a little bit off if they're, tiny bit off, that's fine. While we're in the same position, we can do the same thing here with the other pads. I'm just going to get a little blob of solder going, see if I can get it melted on there. Usually this doesn't work very well as soon as I start recording a video, but kind of hit that a couple of times. Just make sure it flows into the edge of the castellated pad right there. Hopefully you can see that. So let's do these other ones. And sometimes you got to kind of maybe go in from the side, tilt the iron up to get it to flow, hit it again to make sure it's good. And then we get this last 3 volt pin. And clean up my tip a little bit. And usually I hit them a couple of times just to make sure it's got good flow, good adhesion. Maybe just a tiny bit more solder. Don't want to go crazy on this. Sometimes the solder will wick up into the hole in there, and that's fine. If all this castellated pad business is just too crazy for you, don't worry about it. Just use pin headers like you would on any other kind of through-hole stuff. It's just a little quicker and easier, and then also those pins are exposed, and if you wanted to jumper something off of this and hack on it, that is kind of a handy way to do so. So you might say, hey, let me add some extra stuff to this, and those pins are available. So again, the white marked, hold on, that's off screen. The white marked ones there, are kind of the same thing down here, are the only ones that are connected, but since this is sort of where the USB jack is, go ahead and solder this top corner one, and that's going to help kind of hold things in place. So that's looking good. And then we're going to jam through the other side, and we're done. right, so that's it. It's all assembled. So a couple extra points here. With the QT pies, you've got a STEMMA QT connector on the back of each one. That could be used to connect an I2C device if you wanted to extend this with sensors or other things and write some special code for it. You can do that. You can also go directly to the pins here, SDA, SEL, if you wanted to wire directly there. And then on the bottom side, you could also attach SPI flash and do other things if you wanted to sort of hack on this and write custom firmware for it. Totally not necessary, but all those things are there if you do want to hack on it. So there you go. That's the QT pie build.